Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to our weekly live show. I hope you are doing great. And I am going to jump in here today to talk to you about how to track your metrics in your music business in the beginning and the end of each quarter and at the beginning of each quarter so that you can ensure you are actually keeping track of the right information. And hopefully this is live streaming in the right places, but let me just do a little double check here to make sure, because I want to make sure this is actually going live. So it may not be going live on Instagram. There's a little bit of a trick that needs to happen for this to go live on Instagram at the same time that I'm doing all these other platforms. But let's just give it a try and see if I can get my list Instagram followers to join me. I think it should be, but let's see here. Let's hold on. No, I think I may not be. Okay. I'll probably just restream it later on to my IG followers. Anyway, I'm not seeing anyone live yet. So I'd love for you all to hop on over here. Let me know. I'm going to put a little tag in my group as well and see if I can get you all to join me in here. Oh, it says I'm live. Okay. Maybe I may be good. I may be good. Okay. So welcome to our training. This is our typical Monday show. And I hope that you are excited to come in here and talk about how to track the most important metrics in your business. And if you are watching me on IG, I would appreciate if you can put a little comment to let me know it's actually live streaming, because I'm not seeing it live on my end. But it says I am live, so we'll see. But anyway, excited to come in here with all of you and talk about what are some of the things you need to look at when you're resetting your quarter and you're looking at figuring out how to measure progress, right? Progress is something that is always this elusive metric. It's like, what does progress actually mean? And how can we attach significant metrics to really assess whether or not we are headed in the right direction? And one of the things that I get a lot of questions around in terms of progress, and a typical question that when people that are coming into my world are asking is like, how do you know when your clients are progressing? What does it look like to actually succeed? And when do you know when progress is happening? And I'll tell you right away, progress is something that is always going to be very arbitrary. It's going to always depend on the person. It's always going to depend on the goals that that person has set up, and it's always going to depend on what does progress really mean. And so what I'm going to share with you today is some strategies on how you can potentially have some tangible ways to track whether or not you are in the right direction and whether or not you're getting closer to your definition of success, because it may not be the same as mine or anyone else's, and how to create some baseline parameters to help you define what success needs to look like for you specifically. So let's talk about some of these metrics that will help you have a better picture around whether or not you're on the right track. And so the first thing I want you to look at is when you're doing a quarterly review, and we're headed now towards the end of the first quarter. And hopefully you have, by the end of this training, you're going to have some specific tangible actions that will allow you to go back and look at your business and be able to assess whether or not you're in the right direction. So let's talk about progress. Let's talk about how can you first assess whether or not you're moving the needle in the right direction. And the first thing is your behaviors. When you think about how are you behaving and what are the things that you need to do, the first thing you need to look at is what have you been able to accomplish in the last 90 days? What are some of the things that you set out to achieve, and what did you actually get done? And if sometimes when you achieve these things and you just immediately move on to the next goal, it's easy to forget that this was something you had intentionally set out to do. And by the time you completed it, it didn't feel like a celebration. It didn't feel like you just did it and you just went on to the next thing. So I want you to have a moment of just reflection on what did you accomplish in these last 90 days? What are you proud of? And what lessons did you learn from those accomplishments? And even if you didn't accomplish everything you had set out for yourself, it's important that you take a moment to just stop and evaluate what did you do and what worked and what didn't work. Without that initial pause and reflection, setting out new goals and tracking new metrics is not really relevant until you do this first, okay? So taking a moment to pause and reflect, look at your past behaviors. Now, into the next 90 days, as you're creating your next plan, you're going to want to ask yourself, what do you want to accomplish in these next 90 days? And what will some of the obstacles look like? Because it's easy to envision what we want to achieve, but it's sometimes important to also assess what are the potential obstacles that are going to stand in our way for us to get there, right? So, whatever your goal is, if you want to restructure your music business, if you want to create a different way of working with your students, if you want to launch a special creative project, whatever that looks like, what is the goal? What is the goal? But also, what are the potential downfalls? What are the obstacles you're going to encounter? And most importantly, what is the mindset you need to have in order to overcome those obstacles, so that this starts wiring you and preparing you for the potential challenges you're going to face and the weaknesses that you may encounter and the temptation of stopping and quitting that you may find along the way. How are you going to proactively combat that dependency on wanting to just like give up, right? So this is important because when you become aware of what will it take for you to quit and how can you be preventing that in your daily actions and your mindset behaviors, then you're going to have a lot more power to be able to overcome them when they show up in your life, and they will show up, right? So what is, from this mindset standpoint, what is the way that you're going to tackle those challenges? And what are some of those behaviors? They may not be external. Not everything is going to be external. Not all the goals are going to encounter external obstacles. Sometimes you may have internal obstacles as well. Maybe you have some hidden mindset issues. Maybe you're feeling that you're not deserving enough, or that you're not worthy enough. Maybe you're feeling that you are not strong enough, right? Or that's, it's not going to be successful enough. Anything that is internal obstacles that you are putting in this process, you need to be able to call these out and be extremely aware. Because if you know anything about me being in my program, in my world, in my community, a lot of the development of your business is going to be closely related to the development of your personal values and your personal behaviors. Your decisions, the way you make decisions, the way you do things in life will be incredibly impactful in the way you run your business. And so being able to call out those negative behaviors, those trends that are not necessarily going to allow you to succeed, is incredibly important for you to be able to do this and be prepared for the potential, desire to quit, etc. So looking at past goals, looking at past behaviors, looking at past accomplishments, then moving into the next stage of the 90 days, looking into what are you going to now establish as your next goal? What are the potential obstacles? And what will the mindset required from you need to be in order to overcome those obstacles? Just with that internal self-assessment, you're setting the foundation for a very successful next kind of quarter and in terms of implementation. The other thing you want to do is look at what are not just the goals that you want to achieve. And typically, when we're talking about goals, these can be referred to as key performance indicators. In the business world, this is a very common topic. KPIs. What are the goals that you want to achieve? Whether you want to double your income, work half the time, whatever those goals look like. Can you establish that very clear outcome? And also, what are the critical drivers? What are the activities specifically that will lead you to getting those results? So in the case of, let's talk about growth of your income. If you're wanting to grow your income and you're building a business that hopefully is monetizing your knowledge instead of your time, which is ultimately the best way to grow your business, if you're able to do that, then you're going to need to have clarity around what are the actual activities that you need to take place. How many conversations are you going to have with potential clients? How many offers do you need to make in order to achieve that level of revenue, right? You want to have that very clear, so that with that clear KPI, that clear key performance indicator, you can then backtrack what are the successful driving activities, the critical drivers. So thinking about number of hours you need to dedicate in your week for sales calls, for example, or number of conversations you need to make sure you're able to have, right? Or number of offers that you need to make in order to reach those revenue goals. And even when it comes to lead generation and outbound connection and developing relationships, how many new connections would you want to bring into your world on a weekly basis, on a monthly basis, in order for you to create enough opportunity to have meaningful conversations to reach those goals, right? So looking at the specific metrics that you need to reverse engineer from a sales side of things, and also from a content creation side of things. When you're creating content online, you need to be very mindful of the goal of that content. How many views would you like to get in the content that you're bringing in? It's not just about posting for the sake of posting. What is a goal? And it's okay if you don't achieve it at the beginning, but if you just post content for the sake of posting and you're not measuring the impact of that content, and whether or not it's, creating the reach that you expect, creating the engagement that you expect, and you're starting to see the results of that output of creativity in your work, then it's not okay for you to just spend a lot of time and energy just putting content for the sake of putting content, right? So when you think about the content side of things, creating content to bring people into your world, you need to be very strategic in seeing that and saying, well, how much content do you need to create and how much can you repurpose from your content? So a lot of the things that you're going to look at is how can you batch create content, maybe once a month, once a week, whatever that looks like for you, and schedule it all out, right? How is that important? How can you be strategic in deciding whether it's video, whether it's written posts, what type of content will be the most important? And so when you look at the last 90 days in this moment of kind of self-reflection and assessment, look at your content output. How much content did you put out? What type of content was it? Go look at the engagement, go look at the views, go look at the likes, go look at the reactions, the comments, all of the engagement that you've had in your content, and ask yourself, what can you do differently these next 90 days to get a different result if you want to grow in a different way than you did in the past, right? Again, that self-evaluation, looking back, is so important in order to see where you are and what are the things you need to do differently in order to create that next level result. So we talked about mindset behaviors. We talked about reassessing, what do you need to do differently? How are you going to better prepare for the obstacles that are going to come your way? We talked about looking at sales metrics and being able to reverse engineer for whatever your income goal is in the next 90 days. What is the output of activities that you need to take place? How many conversations you need to have? Ideally, what would you want your ability to make offers to look like? Let's say you have 10 conversations a week. At least 8 or 9 of those, you should ideally be making an offer to, so that you can get at least 3 or 4 of those people to say yes and to be able to predict what will it take for you to grow, right? So these are all important things that you need to start looking and measuring in your business so that you can create tangible metrics for the next 90 days and you know what to focus on, right? So we talked about the sales side of things. We talked about the content side of things. How much content did you put in the last 90 days and how much you need to put in this day? Maybe it's not just about the quantity of content. Maybe it's about the quality of your message. Are you speaking clearly enough to your potential clients? Are they getting the gist of what you do in a simple and concise way? If you're over elaborating and your language is too complex, chances are you're confusing your ideal clients. They're not going to understand exactly what you do, who you are, and how it helps them. So it's also taking a moment to just assess how effective has your content been up until this point and what could you do differently, right? That's also incredibly important when you're looking at establishing those metrics to track in your music business. And a lot of this is something that can really be successful when you have the right foundations in place, meaning when you have the right model to begin with, right? A lot of you may not realize that in order for you to do this, you have to be able to really create this from a place of strategy, and you have to be very clear. This is a live session. So if you have any comments, by the way, feel free to write them down in this chat because I'm happy to kind of answer this. This is why I love coming in here and really share all of this with you. Because I believe that there's a lot of power in just offering my experience and my container to my community for free once a week in this way. So by all means, if you're watching this live, feel free to share any questions, comments as I'm going through. I'll definitely take a look at them. But I want to encourage those of you who are coming into my community, sharing and like looking at all of these materials. Hopefully it's giving you some room for thought. But the most important thing I was saying earlier is that you are intentional in building this in the right model. Because if the model you have right now depends on you trading more of your time, a lot of what I just shared is not going to be feasible because your time is completely taken. And it may feel overwhelming for you to prepare these metrics, to even track these metrics, to even have these conversations, to even create content in this way. So it's really important that above all of this, that you're making sure you're putting this in the right framework for your business. And you're not only working where you're having to give more of your time away through performances, through one-on-one lessons, whatever you do, through delivering service, like finished productions, recordings, but instead that you are offering some sort of a container where you can give people access to your brains, not just to your hands. I want you to let this sink in. How can you make sure that everything you're doing in your business is giving people access to your knowledge, not just your hands, not just your time, right? Not just the things that you're manually delivering to people. And this is something that in my next masterclass coming up next Monday, actually, I am going to be discussing for a full, week or so, how you can make sure that everything you establish in your business is actually in the right foundation. It's in the right model. So if you haven't yet registered, I encourage you to check out musiciansprofitmasterclass.com, because I'm going to be walking you through the step-by-step process, not only in defining the right metrics in your business, but also to helping you figure out what is the foundation you need to build this on. How can you make sure that you're not building a business and aiming for growth, quote unquote, in a wrong model, in a model that's not actually going to allow you to scale this, right? So I look forward to connecting with each and every one of you. Let me know what your takeaways are from this training. Hopefully it's giving you some ideas to start putting together as you're looking into optimizing your metrics for your quarter in your music business, wrapping up this first quarter of 2024. And if you're interested in really looking how you can do this further, join my masterclass starting next Monday. And it is a free, 5-day plus some bonus sessions event where we're going to be going deep into all of this, walking you through the step-by-step process on how you can build your online music business in this way, where you're giving people access to your knowledge instead of your time. So thank you for watching, everyone. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Happy Monday, and let's prosper together. See you next week.